With the start of the 2026 short legislative session near, the member towns and cities that make up the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities have prepared a draft of legislative priorities, primary among which is a slate of proposals that would promote local property tax relief. Though the session only goes through May, we also hope that our legislators work with municipalities in tackling important issues, such as special education and solid waste management. To talk about this, we are bringing in our Director of Public Policy, Brian O'Connor, to talk about the needs in our towns and cities and the expectations at the Capitol. The Municipal Voice is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments. CCM's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state and local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the consensus views of CCM or member municipal leaders.
Brian, thanks for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So we're having you on right now because the legislative session, of course, is coming up soon. And I know that we have set our legislative priorities for the upcoming session here. And first of all, just for some of the people at home, when I say we've set our priorities, how do we actually come to these?
It's a very elaborate process, actually. So starting in the summer, right after the previous session ends, we start soliciting our mayors and first selectmen and town managers to see who wants to sit on our policy committees. We have 5 of them, and basically either themselves join or they assign maybe a department head to the committee, or oftentimes there's other selectmen that may sit on their behalf and represent the city or town.
Got it.
So after that process, we solicit ideas and get kind of a primer with, usually we get about a dozen or so requests and put those before the policy committees. Policy committees meet during the fall and then contemplate not only the measures that were forwarded by their peers, but they also generate it within the meeting. And then after that, it goes to our full legislative committee. And what you have right now is the product of a vote that was determined by a vote at our annual convention. And our lead priorities are those that got the most votes from our membership.
From our membership. Great. Now everyone can kind of get a sense of how we work. So let's talk about some of these priorities. First off, kind of broadly, is increase state aid to municipalities and promote local property tax relief. Now, some version of that is something we've obviously covered over the years because it's a struggle we have us times back and forth with the state. But specifically for this upcoming legislation session, how do we hope to actually make that happen?
The number one priority we had this year, as you just mentioned, more specifically, is the Mashantucket Mohegan Pequot Fund. Right now, I believe we receive approximately $54 million per year from that fund at the high water mark, and what it should be funded at is $139 million. And, many of these cuts occurred when we had, fiscal troubles in the let's say 2013 to 2017. Before they put the fiscal guardrails in place. And I think what we're trying to do is restore that. If you look at other aspects of it, you look at the pilot, and then our number 2 being on education and such, those are underfunded. They're on the books for a certain amount of money or a certain formula. And what the legislature does is they put in notwithstanding language and say, notwithstanding what the law says, we're going to give you this amount. And it's a lot less. Now we've made some progress, like on the pilot funds. We made substantial progress, and that's probably about 4 or 5 sessions ago. So we're going to build upon that, and that's part of that increasing municipal aid.
So you mentioned education a little bit there. And I know one of the other big priorities is to increase the level of special education funding provided to towns, cities, and enact measures that provide meaningful relief from existing mandates. Could you go a little bit into that? Like, what do we mean when we talk about existing mandates for special education, and how does that impact our towns?
Yeah, right. Actually, the legislature again made some progress last year. We got to give them
Hmm.
credit. There, they created the Special Education Expansion and Development Grant Fund,
Okay.
and they set aside $30 million for that. And I think one of the things that we're looking to do is expand upon that,
Hmm.
because this is the biggest cost driver right now within municipal budgets on the education side.
Hmm.
And it's very hard to control. There's a lot of different factors going into that. Some of
Hmm.
it is the external vendors that aren't school-based, private providers, and they kind of have you over a barrel
Yeah.
as far as, what they can charge. And I think there was some reforms on that last year. We'll see how
Yeah.
they actually take effect. And then the other part is the minimum budget requirement, which
Hmm.
what you spent last year, you have to spend at minimum that amount. And I think
Yeah.
they're looking for some changes there as well. So I think, one of the approaches we've talked about in the past is coming up with regional centers of excellence for special education,
Mm.
where, not each town has to, hire, let's say, a hearing specialist or what have you. We can kind of aggregate that and regionalize it and share some of those resources. And we think that will be helpful.
Yeah.
Um, and hopefully we'll be able to achieve that in the long run.
So there's nothing in place now that would allow our towns to do that.
Um, we to make it really work, you need state support, I think, on it.
Yeah.
And I think um, to build the structures themselves, some towns may have capacity with, as we
Mhm.
mentioned before, with the declining enrollment. So there might be capacity on a local or regional level.
All right. So on the number three of our big priorities for 2026 here, we want to provide, or the state to provide more funding to support mass transit such as rail, bus service, and highway improvements. Um, Talk about that. Why is that a priority for us this year?
You know what? It's funny if you dive into it a little bit more. There's the microtransit grant program,
Okay.
which has been very helpful for many communities, where it's kind of like a point real time. You call up and say, "I need to go from downtown or the north end of Guilford down to downtown to work."
Hmm.
And then you can get call them up and get a bus back. And it's really seems to be, it's funny when they went about this, they did think it would be, mostly senior driven and
Hmm.
going to work. They're seeing a lot of students using it and
Mm.
young people. And it is still being used for work
Yeah.
purposes as well as seniors getting to appointments and such.
So then going on from there, we also are pushing this year to increase housing opportunities and develop more affordable housing. What are
Yeah,
some of the ways we're looking to make that happen?
yeah, I was going to say that, most people who follow state politics understand that we did get a housing bill passed this past November,
Yeah.
signed by the governor. And what these are kind of offshoots of that. I think,
Hmm.
housing is still a huge issue within Connecticut. We do want to see how the bill that recently passed, let's
Hmm.
implement it, see how it works. But we also think there's some other things that we can do that be helpful in building more housing, whether
Hmm.
it's market rate, but also affordable housing. And I think the one that I want to focus on is the forgivable loan program for the development of a certain amount of affordable housing. This
Okay.
is to basically incentivize developers, uh, give them incentives and make it financially feasible and have it pencil out for them to build these units. And I think that's important. And also as a state policy, we think state funds should be used for that.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I want to point out is supportive housing. This is to try to keep people in their homes or
Hmm.
provide some stability to them so that, so they don't go homeless, or if they're at risk of losing their housing, at least they have a place to stay and a roof over their head. And
Yeah.
that also comes with what we call wraparound services, to
Mhm.
help, whether it be mental health or just, you know, um, you know, getting there if it's a family, making sure that the students are able to get to school and provide the services necessary to get people back on their feet.
You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM.
We want to streamline the permitting process for solid waste management projects. Why is that an important thing for our member towns? Like,
That's a perennial issue over the last 3 to 5 years. And what really kickstarted this is that they closed the Mira plant, which was in Hartford. And
which was a plant where they burned trash.
yeah, they burned trash. They closed it down because the cost to upgrade it was cost prohibitive.
It was
So
older and
now,
maybe letting off some pollutants that they didn't like or something.
well,
Or just old.
to the extent I think they were in compliance when
Yeah.
they did close, but to get to the next stage, they would have had to make exorbitant amount of investment.
Get a whole new system or whatever.
Yeah. And I think what you're looking at here is that right now 800,000 tons of solid waste
hmm
that were formerly kind of handled at that Mira plant are now being shipped out of state.
Yeah.
So
So it wasn't necessarily bad that Mirror went away, but the problem for us is that it went away without anything to replace that.
correct. So I think what we're looking at is a more, again, a regional approach,
hmm
looking at different things. I think food waste is a big one.
What getting like composting sort of
Right. So
programs
you
going,
kind
stuff
of,
like that.
yeah, building more anaerobic digesters, but also creating kind of regional pickups. Uh,
Mm.
looking at the Green Bank as a possible conduit to that.
Like working with
They're
them to
making
make like a
investment.
sort of a distribution system and a network or something.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the magic number there is within a 20-mile radius. After that, again, it becomes cost prohibitive.
Just for to remind me and let everyone else out there know, roughly how many bills stuff do you guys have to deal with in an average session?
It's funny you say that. A few years ago, it was on average, it was about 3,000 bills. Last year, it was 4,000.
Wow.
So I'm hoping that we go back to the 3,000 number, particularly since it's
Everybody
a
was just extra
split
busy last
session.
year or something?
They got a lot of good ideas and they want them heard. A lot of them are repetitive. You
Yeah,
get
like
like
trying
20,
again or fine tuning it or whatever.
yeah, and you also get like, let's say 30 representatives who put in the same bill. But
Yeah,
you do have to track them, at least from the onset.
yeah.
Um, Big thing for us are the committee deadlines.
hmm
After the committee deadlines, you know what bills actually have real life to them,
Yeah.
and you can kind of zero in on your on the bills that you think are going to be most
You really need to
impactful.
get like ready for and whatever. So talking
Yeah,
about those, I have some here that you and your staff have identified, I think, for this session as being kind of legislative issues that are going to be important. And one of the first ones is to require a fire marshal inspection of a bar or restaurant prior to liquor license approval and renewal. What's going on there and why is that important?
well, it's important because I think once a bar or restaurant gets its liquor license,
hmm
it's hard to not that you want to hold it over the head and leverage it, but at the same time, you want them to be able to have a proper inspection of their restaurant. And I think
hmm
sometimes that's a hindrance uh, when they don't have kind of that incentive to allow it to happen and to keep their place up to snuff.
So this, I think, relates back to what we were talking about a little bit before, but improve organic recycling by supporting and expanding organic recycling and help reduce the amount of solid waste throughout the state.
Yeah, that is a build off of what we talked about
Yeah.
previously. We do like, the deep grants. I forgot the acronym for them, but they're sustainable grants
hmm
for these organ or handling and disposing of organic waste within Connecticut, within a community. And we're looking to build off of that. And I think, again, that regional approach that we were talking about, where you could do it more large scale and get
hmm
more towns involved, I think we're looking for more, uh, build out of that.
Yeah. And we're talking about like building these and getting these going. What's involved in that? Is it like, is there facilities you have to build? Like you have to put
At
something new
least
at the
transfer
dump? Do you have to have
station.
like what they call them digesters or something?
Anaerobic digesters. Yeah, you for the most part, it would be more of a transfer station where you pick up the waste and bring it back to a facility that
Hmm.
that either exists. There's some private haulers that do this.
Okay.
Um,
So are
again,
the individual members would need to have the digester, they have a transfer regional that would then go to some larger
yeah, think
dumpers.
of let's say, Portland, Cromwell, Middletown. You might have something in Middletown.
Hmm.
It's kind of a place for the other two to drop, and then you make an arrangement with a third party or a hauler who would pick it up and bring it back to their facility. And again, it's that 20-mile range that makes
Hmm.
it work economically.
Here's a different one. Assist local fire marshal inspections of 3+ family dwellings.
Well,
Well,
right
how
now
does
there's
that work? Hmm?
well, right now there's state law that says every 2 years that you have to
Hmm.
inspect this. And some of our urban communities where many of these family dwellings are, they're
Yeah, that
behind.
applies to a lot of the housing stock. Yeah.
They're behind on the inspection. So there's some
Mm.
thought that if we got a qualified third party to conduct the inspections, we can get
Mm.
rid of the backlog and actually provide some of the safety as to the reason why a municipality has been charged to do this. And I think one of the things is that we're exposed to liability. There was a big case in one of our larger communities
Hmm.
where they were fined liable for not completing the inspections. And unfortunately, there was, casualties from a house fire. And
Yeah.
so we're looking to alleviate that and get the houses inspected.
So what is the municipal liability cap and how does that relate?
So we're looking, yeah, right now, the awards that are going for negligence claims are really starting to get out of control. And
Hmm.
really, it's hard to plan for them. It's hard to um, kind of be able to budget for them as well. So we're looking to
Hmm.
see if we might be able to establish a cap. There is one up in Massachusetts and other communities or states rather of
Hmm.
$250,000. Um, and then looking at it also based on the number of employees.
Hmm.
Like if you have 15 to 100 employees, it would be 25,000. 101 to 200 would be $50,000 cap, or the damages would be capped at that level. So I think, um, again, it's to try to get a handle on some of the settlements that are
Hmm.
occurring.
Oh, okay. It's a long way of saying it, but target 1% of the meals and beverage tax revenue to go to towns in the Connecticut Tourism Office in order to provide resources and promote tourism.
So right now, there's a food and beverage tax of 1% that you can
Hmm.
see on your bill when you go out to a restaurant.
Okay,
And
that's already
actually,
there. Yeah.
it's funny, we actually brought this idea up to the legislature at the time,
Hmm.
and they wanted us to take on teachers' retirement, and we said, no, thanks. So then they said, you know what, we're going to keep the 1 cent. So what we'd like to do is go back to somewhat of the original idea where we at least will get 50% of it.
Hmm.
50% or 25% would go to the hospitality industry for workforce
Hmm.
development purposes, and the other 25% would go to the Office of Tourism for marketing and promotion.
But right now, the state's just holding on to it
It just goes into the general fund.
into
Yeah.
the general fund. Okay. Um, oh,
And I
use
think the
brownfield and
idea,
grayfield. Hmm?
oh, I was just one final note on that. I think many of our towns are relying on tourism as an
Hmm.
economic generator for them. So we think this is a positive for both the tourism industry, but also tourism in general within Connecticut.
Yeah. There's a lot of growth in that. I mean, obviously there's like the shoreline and Mystic and that kind of stuff. But a couple episodes ago, I had someone from the Office of Tourism talking about the Christmas trail they did
Oh,
and
nice.
that kind of stuff. But she was also saying that New Haven, because of like all the pizza hubbub, has been rising in rankings as like in the top 20 searched most like top 20 most searched destinations or something ridiculous. Like, okay, I think it's great, but it's kind of interesting how, you know, getting something out there like New Haven's got the best pizza makes it a destination.
Yeah, I
What else could they
mean,
do by promoting some of these things?
I give Anthony a lot of credit for that. He it was a great idea that people are talking about it everywhere.
Yeah. So using brownfields and grayfield funding to develop new housing opportunities. So what is that?
So brownfields can be used for money can be used for a whole bunch of purposes, but the
Mhm.
idea is to convert former industrial properties into housing. And gray
Mhm.
fields is just, let's say, a mall or more of a
Okay.
retail.
So when we're talking about brownfields, we're talking about old industrial sites where maybe the dirt is polluted with something, and so you have to do like a lot of remediation before you can do something with it. And then the
Correct.
gray fields is just it's not polluted
That's
with like industrial pollutant that's just like paved over or something like that.
Yeah. Well, the gray field is more of a commercial building that is empty.
Okay, so it's actually a building.
Yeah. It could be, a vacant property if they've knocked down the building, but think of a mall, let's say, that's
It's
been
just
sitting there, and this would be an adaptive reuse for it.
mm,
And if again, developers, in order to convert these buildings, it's very expensive to
mm,
make it work on a residential level, let's say with
yeah.
apartments and such, that they need these dollars to help uh, to do that.
Yeah, it can be challenging because it's a weird conversion. You remember when we used to be over at 900 Chapel Street, where you around then?
Yes.
How they converted the old Chapel Square Mall into apartments as part of that building, and you would be walking through the old food court and whatever, but there was people's front doors there. It was strange. I don't know if it was the best example of how to do that, but it was certainly one example.
Yeah. So projects like that, the Grayfield funding would help facilitate it.
That'd be cool. Um, Convene a task force to study regionalization of fire services.
Well, what you're really finding now is, whether you're a big city or small town, it's harder and harder to retain and recruit
Hmm.
firefighters in particular. And I think the idea here is what can we do on a regional basis to kind of recognize that fact and make sure that there's still coverage within these
Mm,
communities. And I think just looking at training costs, collaborating on procurement, and also just making sure there's coverage by again leveraging there is already kind of an EMS system where people kind of
mm,
cover, where you get
yeah,
like two or three crews coming out from different towns to help. But I
yeah.
think, as the number of volunteers and career firefighters uh, is reduced, we got to think outside the box and see what we might
Mm.
be able to do.
Is there any studies going on? Like, are the numbers dropping? Is it just Connecticut or is it nationwide sort of thing?
I haven't looked nationwide, but I anticipate that it's not just Connecticut's problem.
Yeah, just less people want to be firemen now or something?
I think that's part of it. I think on the volunteer level, it's the training
Mm,
costs, the amount of time to like just stay certified.
mm,
As far as career firefighters, I think you're looking at, it might not be uh, as much of an allure as it used to be
yeah,
for whatever reason.
yeah. But we need them.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Um, oh, here's a long-term goal talking about expanding nuclear and alternative energy.
Yeah,
Do we really want that?
our policy committee sent it out to the full membership and they supported it. So I
All
would,
right, so towns want that.
so I think part of it is you look at the high price
Hmm.
of just electrical rates within
Yeah.
Connecticut, and you see the arguments on the public benefit charge
Hmm.
and elsewhere. But I think the idea is, we're not building any more gas plants. Even wind had some issues. Will it be helpful? I don't know. But at the same time,
Yeah.
there's some innovation going on with nukes. And, we want to at least explore it and see if there's opportunities there. And I think
Yeah,
our
I
town,
know a lot of people, especially like my more sciencey friends, are like, when it comes down to it, it's the cleanest, safest, whatever. It's just that when you hear the stories from the Fukushima or whatever, but
Chernobyl.
really it's efficient and whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
and it is efficient. And I think,
and
there's
like just the way Connecticut's set up, we don't have big open plains for the wind or that kind of stuff.
now it's getting better, I guess,
Mm,
the way we don't need, I think it used to be 12 miles per hour sustained winds.
mm.
But now I think it's less than that, and
Oh, okay.
that's why I
So it
think
doesn't
the
have to be quite so
horizontal
windy
one is
anymore.
going to work. Yeah, if as long as they get permitted.
Yeah.
That's been shelved a couple times, but back on. So hopefully it'll be
On
okay.
again, off again, on again, off again. Um, so is that also covered on when we talk about nuclear and alternative energy? Is it projects like that too?
I think it's just to be open to
Yeah.
different ideas that are out there to help meet the demand, especially, you look at the future.
Hmm.
There's going to be a lot more with AI. There's going to be a lot more need for data centers, and
Hmm.
there are heavy users of electricity and water in particular. So we need to kind of prepare for that as a state.
Yeah. Well, we covered all of the priorities, but before I let you go, you have any predictions for what's coming up in the session? Anything that you're personally looking forward to or not looking forward to?
Well, actually, I'm looking forward to this session in the sense that I think there's a real momentum, particularly on the
Hmm.
education funding side.
Hmm.
There seems to be a consensus growing that we do need to increase, let's say, the foundation grant of the UCS formula. It
Yeah.
hasn't been raised since 2013.
Okay.
So it's badly out of date when it comes to modern costs, inflationary costs that have occurred since then.
Hmm.
And but again, I think there's good momentum there. And I think special ed, we kind of planted the flag last year.
Yeah.
We're hoping that we can build off of that. And I think the third one is the Pequot Mohegan Fund.
Hmm.
That again, I think there seems to be a recognition like, okay,
So
let's
you
see
could
if we
feel like
can throw
there's
that in.
room there for something to happen. Like you can feel a little bit of a wiggle room to get movement on it.
Correct.
Well, it sounds good.
So that's a positive. And I think, as far as other bills, well, there's always going to be something that pops up that kind of surprises you, but we'll be prepared and ready to go.
All right, Brian. When does session start?
Next week, actually, yeah, next week, February 4th.
All right. Well, good luck up there. And thanks for letting us know what's going on with our members and what's important to our leadership.
You got it. Thank you, Matt.
The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Joe Thornton is our executive producer, Christopher Gilson is our producer, Perry Draws is on the boards, and I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like. And watch out for our CCM chat series on our YouTube page.